Hello, Bob DeLille here. I'm reporting out on my Giftedness story. I'm picking one story. I just uploaded all 8 stories. And I'm picking the one that had to do with founding and operating a nonprofit called Ashland Open Door. It's recent and it's emotion driven to some degree, so I thought it'd be a good one to talk about it. I'm going to apologize for my scruffy appearance this morning. I try to avoid shaving on the weekend, so I'll apologize in advance for that. So, here's the story. My wife and I, Carrie, moved to Ashland, Virginia about 3.5 years ago. Prayed about it before we moved there. God didn't really give us any clear direction as to whether He wanted us to go there, didn't want us to go there. If we went there, what He wanted us to do when we got there. So we chose to move there, and while we were there, we continued to pray for His guidance on what role He would like us to play in the community to help people spread the gospel or whatever He'd like us to do. And He kept laying on our heart these motels. Near us is an interstate, Interstate 95, and along that interstate and also Route 1, which is next to us, are some really old, beat up motor motels, motor lodges. And people live in them for long periods of time. And there are people in there with kids. So they're living in these really decrepit conditions, no cleaning facilities, no kitchen, surrounded by some not so savory characters, and there's children in there. At the same time, the town passed a new ordinance limiting how long you could stay in those motels. So I felt as if God was laying on my heart to get involved and help the people that are in the motels, because some at least were being forced to move out, and they had children. So I started talking with folks around town about the issues, trying to gather information, the chief of police, the mayor, all those kinds of folks, and the church leaders, and found that there were a whole bunch of people living in the motels, probably 100 plus or minus families with children, and one of the motels, all of the motels, there were 8 of them, have some unsavory characters in them, but one of them in particular, the Apple Garden Inn, was full of sex molesters and drug deals, heroin drug deals, and prostitution, all kinds of really bad stuff. Here's a picture of the motel. You can see that. So I felt driven or led by God to get involved in this and begin to help these people. So we formed teams. I did a lot of research and started talking with the people, and coincidentally there are people living behind these motels, homeless people in the woods too. So we started talking to them and trying to figure out how we could help them to move to more suitable housing and get connected to services. So we started connecting with the faith leaders in town, the civic leaders, as I already mentioned, and began to get involved. So the first thing we did, and this has become our signature event, to begin to become more connected with these people, the people in the motels and in the woods, the homeless, was to have a Christmas breakfast. So to get them in there, to form relationships, share the gospel, feed them, give their kids some presents. We'll have our 3rd Christmas breakfast this Christmas Day. Here's a flyer for it. The flyer is actually in color, but our printer's black and white. So we will be having that event again this year to build relationships and get to know these people. But that doesn't help the situation. That just is a beginning. So we began to research with experts on homelessness and rapid rehousing and stuff like that, how we could help these people to move into more suitable housing. So fast forward, we ended up forming our own 501c3. I have that form right here. Here it is from the IRS. We are our own 501c3. Here's the letter that proves it. Formed a board. Did a strategic plan. Here's a copy of the strategic plan. It's still in draft, so it's not very pretty. It still has my writing on it. And hired a rapid rehousing coordinator, an MST, Masters in Social Work, and her job is to meet with these people and to determine what's going on with them, connect them to services, and help them move out of the motels into suitable housing, either a rental house or an apartment. And I have an email from her that's about a month and a half old that says, to date, here's the email, to date we have helped 38 families move into stable housing, and she has worked with a total of 56 families through case management services. Those other 18 families, we haven't moved into housing, but we've helped them connect to services. Some people, believe it or not, don't want to move out of the motels. That's the life they know, and so we try to help them in place where they are. So we've done all that. Along the way, that motel that I shared with you that has been the worst one, the Apple Garden, with the prostitution and the drug rings and all that, has closed. Not because of our efforts have not been to shut it down, but to help the people move out. So between the people moving out and the county and the city putting pressure on them, they closed down. They've been closed for about a year and a half. In fact, it was that event, them closing down abruptly. There was only a 1-week notice that they were going to close down that really got us kicked into action. Up until that point, that was back in 2016. Yeah, 2016, April. Up until that time, we were still formulating our strategic plan and so forth, but that caused us to have to kick into action and actually go out and help those people move. The whole facility was infested with bed bugs and lice, and so we had to help them debug all that kind of stuff and everything. And I remember in the middle of that, driving up to the Apple Garden, the parking lot. It was after dark, and just across the parking lot where the woods where all these homeless guys live, this motel is infested, as I've already said, with sex offenders, drug dealers, prostitutes. And I drive up, and there's three little girls, grade school age girls, in the dark by themselves playing Barbies, sitting out in the middle of the parking lot. And if that isn't a reason to get involved and help these people, I don't know what is. But there's been a lot more to it than the emotion. We've helped a lot of people. We're continuing to help a lot of people. It's an ongoing effort. As I mentioned, there are seven other motels, and there are a lot of people with children in those motels that we're still working to help with. We've had to develop marketing materials, and this is just one example. And do lots of other stuff that you would do with a business. Do the research, develop the strategic plan, do a business plan, form a board, form committees, raise money, and also to connect with the faith community to get them involved in this. So our strategies have been threefold. One is to enable these people to move to suitable housing by hiring a rapid rehousing coordinator, which we've done. Second is to develop a fund so that when these people move, they can afford to move into these apartments and houses. They often need help with the security deposit in the first month's rent. We've developed that fund. Of the 38 families we've moved, I think it's 32 or 33 families that we have provided financial support for. And the third part was to engage the faith community, because this is a Christian-based effort in Ashland, to come alongside these folks, build relationships, invite them to church, and share the gospel in a relational way. That part has not gone so well. The churches in Ashland are, in my opinion, are more internally focused than they should be, and are a little scared of inviting those kinds of folks, the homeless and people living in the motels, into their congregation. So that's a battle we continue to fight. But I continue to work. We have a faith community committee that's working on that, try to get engaged more, get the faith community more engaged in spreading the gospel to these folks and building relationships and inviting them to church. That's ongoing. We're also in process of talking about merging with another local organization called Circles, which is a faith-friendly organization that's helping people that are in difficult situations learn life skills and become self-sufficient versus relying on the services provided by the state, the county, and the city. So throughout this, the abilities that I've had to put into play are very similar to the abilities I've had to put into play when it comes to our business. Research, communication, think through things, plan, present, raise money, hire people, execute, generate interest in the community, marketing, work in teams, focus and lead and facilitate the team, meet, and give out assignments. Subject matter has been some of the people, community leaders, faith leaders, general citizens, other nonprofits, churches and their congregations, the needy families, and the guys in the woods themselves, the state, local, county governments. And I've had to work with details, benchmarking practices, concepts, so forth. Circumstances, I've had to lead. We've had to do strategic visioning. I've had responsibility. I've had autonomy in figuring this out. I've had to deal with the imminent closing of the apple garden. That was a big crisis. And the new town ordinance that I mentioned, and a sense of urgency in helping these people. I've played the role of leader and facilitator. And the satisfaction I've gotten out of it is watching these 38 plus or minus families with children, and some of the guys in the woods too, the homeless guys, move from the squalid motels or the woods to more suitable housing and safe conditions. So I went a little bit over. I'm sorry about that, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.